Greetings, it is I, the Anax. As you know, for several years now, I have made vast interactive novels unlike anything else in the community. As I always said from the beginning, the idea for creating such massive projects was to first build an equally massive lore, a foundation, so that I could use said lore to make video games. When I was writing my novel about myself, Call of the Cursed One, which, incidentally, Halloween draws near, and if you want a fun Halloween treat and have not played through the interactive novel yet, I shall link it in the description. I was made an offer by a community member during its development. Blank Subroutine has since become a close friend, and as you know, he helped me make my projects look the way I envisioned. Background, audio toggles, text effects, those things not seen in any other Twine game. One day, as we conversed, he brought up an idea he had been mulling over. An idea for not just one, but a few different types of video games. He had a big vision, one matching my own. However, while his ideas were exciting and fresh for our community, he wanted depth to them. Characters, stories, backgrounds, and he wondered if I might be interested in using my own. I looked at his ideas, and while his were different than some of my own, they worked in perfect unison with my lore. Suddenly, there were real video games that could utilize all my intellectual properties. I agreed that we would be a great fit. At the beginning of summer, he said he finally found time to work on programming a demo, and I focused on the art, some of the first looks of which you may have seen on my Twitter or my Patreon, and I am proud to announce the release of the first Anax-verse video game, Factions, Crystals of Control. At the behest of Blank, I have kept the gameplay of this title secret for some time, but now we can finally share our vision with the public. This is only one idea for one game, and as always, depending on the funding I get through Patreon, it will determine how I can afford to proceed. For time's sake, I will just refer to this project as Factions henceforth, though there could always be other faction titles in the future. So, what kind of game is it? It is a Match 3 game. This is a small example of the game board. For those unfamiliar with such gameplay, the player has many gems on the screen, randomly chosen, and the object is to match 3 of a kind. We have taken the time not only to make them different colors, but to add different symbols on them to give players 2 ways to match depending on how their minds work. Now, as an example for those new to the concept, look at this green gem. A green gem, or those with lightning bolt symbols, indicate that it is a psychic gem. There are different types of gems, representing the different powers from my Anax verse, but looking at it, we can see there are also purple gems surrounding it. This is a great thing because we can easily match 3 of the purple or shadow gems. By swapping any of these 4 shadow gems with the psychic one, we would have a match whether we swap horizontally like this or vertically like this. However, look, there is a possible match 4 because of this other shadow gem. Yet we would only be able to get a match 4 if we move the psychic green gem vertically, either up or down, but if this is a match 3 game, why care if we can match even more colored gem types at once? Because of powers. Here is an example of Dionysa's power. She is my main succubus character from my Anax verse. So, in her case, we have 3 powers we can use: Life Drain, Seduction, or Lilith's Love. There are tooltips in the game to let everyone know what a power does, so I will not go into them all now. However, look at the gems to the left of the names. To use Life Drain, the player will need to have broken at least 8 gems. But other powers may require other colors too. Her Life Drain utilizes only shadow magic, but what is this? For greater seduction, one would need to have broken 4 hypnotic red gems, and for her strongest ability, Lilith's Love, one would need to break that many, and even 4 psychic green gems, since that power requires her to use shadow magic, hypnotism, and psychic attack powers all at once. You can see why it would always be best to match as many gems at a time as possible. Here is a screen taken from our alpha version of the demo, as things can change. And now it should be said that the demo my Patreons are getting today as of this moment has only 2 playable characters, Dion and Justine. Chiyoko will be playable by the public release. You can see the player appears on the left side of the screen, Dionysa in this case, and she is fighting a Cereborg minion character, a Hypnobot unit from my Cereborg stories. Minions have less attacks and less powerful ones than the faction leaders and mini-bosses, but they can still beat you if they are given the chance. At the top of the screen are bars that represent the mental resistance of the character. If that bar drops to nothing, the player or enemy loses. This is the basic surmise of the current rendition of the game as far as the demo goes. However, even as a demo, you will notice the professionalism and care that has been put into it. A Blink subroutine has made the game mechanics work while working his job, and I have spent immense amounts of time on the art even while making my novels. This background shows that the player has gone to assault the Cereborgs because, as you can now see, it is the robotics lab from Cereborg Inception. In the Patreon version released today, this is the only level available. In the finished public demo, out in about a month, there are only 3 levels, but in the future game there will be dozens. For the public demo, there is the robotics lab from Cereborgs, an abandoned hospital in New York City from Slugs and Bugs Invasion, and Dionysa's Club, the Lilin Lair from Sex and Souls Noir Nights. Throughout the game, players will choose which faction they want to play as, then choose which faction to fight against, and then, once they have chosen their enemy, they choose levels on a map. What you are seeing here is just concept art, thus some of what you may see might change as I tweak the artwork, but you will go to places like the Giggler's Carnival, or my home, Ravenhurst Manor, to fight my shadowed slaves. There will be many playable characters like the Giggler or Trixie Goodwin from my Giggle Night novel, and many more. However, in the demo, one can only choose from 3 characters or factions. The Lilin Demons, represented by Dion, the Cereborgs, represented by Chiyoko Neru, or the Infectalon Invaders as Justine Day. Why these 3? Well, it's because I ran a poll on my Patreon and my investors voted for these 3. But, as you have seen, there will be 9 factions, and in time, even more could be possible. We have covered the basic concept of game mechanics, but what if one wins a match? In the demo is a very simplified version of that. So let us say one is playing as Dion and they are going to fight Chieko. Let us say that you manage to defeat her. For those that know all my massive lore, you will not be surprised to see that Dion has her ring. It gives her powers beyond that of any normal succubus, and using these powers upon her enemy, the robotic Sarah Chieko in this case, she becomes converted into a succubus too. Cerebrum will not like computing that outcome. However, in the main game, the player would have now unlocked that version of Chieko. So, on a future playthrough, they could go through the game as a succubus version of Chieko with all new powers and scenes. Same if one had played as Justine and ended up besting the beautiful Dion, as she becomes an infected minion of the invaders. Now the player could play through the game as this Infectulon version of a succubus. As one can see from this concept art I made, there are many versions I can dream up of any given character. Each one I would do art for to have different scenes, and in time, as the game develops, there will be possible updates where one might need to use strategies to unlock characters, or where one might need to play a certain level with a certain character to unlock a new version as well. In essence, factions will have immense replayability. The basic story will be that the wily Dagon Erebus from my Phantom novel figured out that hidden far beneath Ravenhurst Manor sat a vault. Those that read Call of the Cursed One and learned my history know that I never managed to locate it, but the ethereal ghost floated around and stumbled upon it. Finding the rumors true, he enlisted the aid of his ex-girlfriend, Trixie Goodwin, the superhero. Not realizing how evil Dagon is, she used her super strength and smashed her way inside. However, by breaking the barrier that my father, Theodore, had placed upon the vault, to contain the countless powerful artifacts and cursed objects, it released a shockwave, alerting all the dark factions of the Anax-verse. The main artifact in question, the Lapis Manalis, is an ancient Greco-Roman artifact, a stone that holds 9 gems, the light sphere in the middle, and surrounding it, the 8 crystals of control. Whoever holds them all has unlimited power, able to control and enslave any entity in both the living world and even the realms of darkness and light. The player will start with the light sphere and then seek out the other 8 crystals, each of which has fallen into the hands of the other faction leaders. Once all the gems have been captured, the player will have won the game. Of course, extra content past that, it might always be added as well, and just like with my massive 100,000-word novels, I use real-world history, legend, and folklore even in the video game. The Lapis Manalis was supposedly, according to ancient Roman sources, a real object that granted the user the ability to traverse the spirit realms. Of course, as you might recall from the example earlier, Dionysa was pitted against a Cereborg minion, the Hypnobot. However, as you can see from this concept teaser, there will be minions for every faction. This shows one from each of the original 9 factions. As you can see, they will all be unique and have different powers. Blank and I are currently discussing different ways of implementing minions for players as well. We also have discussed possibly adding power-ups of sorts that one can purchase from the cunning and mischievous Hobbs the Hobgoblin, buying them from his store as seen in my Desideratum Blood Bonds novel. I will be holding live developer Q&A sessions, and Blank will join as he can. By the time this video goes live, we will have a thread on the HypnoPix Collective for it, and I will probably post one on TF Games as well. So feel free to ask development questions there, or watch one of my live streams. The first live stream will be both myself and Blank, and will be on Thursday, October 4th. It will begin at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 Central, 5 Mountain, 4 Pacific Time. If you do not live in the United States, hopefully those times will make sense to you so that you show up to ask any questions about the development process. As always, I love feedback and communication, and my patrons on Patreon will continue to get their weekly progress reports as well. And I think that sums up the first video game. I want to finish up this announcement with two subjects. One is to remind everyone that this game is a work in progress, and the demo has only been released to my patrons for now. However, the demo will be free to play for everyone as my Halloween treat this year. You all know how I do enjoy Halloween and sharing treats every year. The art, ideas, and such are subject to change in the final version. I will say that I am sure you will agree this demo already exceeds many other games in regards to quality, and believe it or not, it is only a rough draft. We want to stress that the actual game will have even more polish than this demo, which should be in its finished version by the Halloween public release. The second thing I want to say is that the demo has already cost me about $3,000. This is actually my job, creating for you. All my income comes from my Patreon. Thank you to my current investors, but I want to stress to everyone that I have to buy commercial rights for everything in my video games. Just for this demo alone, I paid hundreds for the music, hundreds more for the models, and while Blank was kind enough to program the demo for me for free, for the actual video game, he will be a contracted programmer. So if you want to see this video game made, I seriously will require more income a month than the current $1,000 or so I make. Please invest in me. Even $5, that's about 17 cents a day, assuming I work 8 hours, which I generally work 10 to 12, but that 17 cents a day adds up. However, I am deathly serious. If I cannot afford to make this game, it shall not be made, or just be made very slowly as I try and set money back when I can until I am able to afford another build. That said, I have spent years building a reputation as a professional creator, and you know that with me I do what I say I will. And I have monthly updates on my work, or even if there is an issue or a problem, bi-monthly at worst. Rare, but even that is very good in a community where many creators cannot boast such. The Unity games will work where my patrons will always have the newest build, and then every time we have a new stable build, I will release the old stable build publicly. Thus, do not expect a free version every month as with my novels. These video games require more money to make. The demo is just a proof of concept, and it is fairly bug-free, so again, please invest in me so that I can continue to develop entertainment for you to enjoy. So, investors, enjoy the demo right now, it's yours, and to the public, when Halloween arrives, you can enjoy it as well. Thank you to everyone that helped me reach this first milestone, and I hope to share so much more with you over the rest of my life. For now, back to the Shadowlands I go, to prepare an army of shadow to help protect my crystal of control from the others. See you next time.